For this week's Goals and Experiences forum, I will explain how I anticipate using the gunas as a guide for creating fitting meals. Then, I will discuss my pulse reading, explain the meal that I plan to help bring balance to my pulse, and why I believe the meal that I planned is suitable. Lastly, I will explain why this is a practice that I will continue to follow and what my reasoning for doing so is. The way that I anticipate using the gunas as a guide for creating fitting meals for my constitution starts with more regular self-pulse reading practice. I would like to implement pulse readings before each meal and when I wake up in the morning and before I go to bed at night. This will help me to decide which gunas I will pair in the foods that I choose for each meal. It will also help me to get a consistent and average idea of what my body is requiring nutrient-wise. With regular self-pulse practice, I can better assess the gunas in my pulse and implement the concept of samnya and vishesh when using taste in the foods that I choose to consume. This week, I assessed both my surface and deep pulse, and now I will explain the gunas that I felt in each of my subdoshas. First, in the Pranavata subdosha, I experienced light and subtle gunas. It was hardly detectable at all. In the Udanavata subdosha, slightly unctuous yet very subtle gunas were felt. In the Samyana Vata subdosha, I felt more kapha gunas, such as unctuous, stable, and swan-like qualities. My Apanavata subdosha expressed strong pitta gunas, such as warmth, a strong beat, and a little unctuousness, which is a kapha guna. The Vyanavata subdosha expressed pure vata qualities. The Pachak pitta subdosha expressed warmth, strength, and inconsistencies, as well as the Rajak subdosha. However, in the Rajak subdosha, there were more kapha qualities felt, such as a slight unctuousness. In the Siddhak subdivision or subdosha, I felt mostly light and subtle vata gunas, and in the Alachak kapha subdosha, I felt a lot of unctuousness, evenness, and sweetness. In the Shleshaka subdosha, I felt warm, evenness, and unctuousness. In the Kladaka kapha subdosha, I felt coolness and stability, which are both vata and kapha qualities. In Avalambaka, I experienced swan-like gunas, indicating kapha dominance. In Badhaka and Tarpaka kapha subdoshas, I felt a lot of vata qualities such as cool, light, and subtle sensations. And in the Shleshika kapha subdosha, I predominantly felt vata qualities. This was in my deep pulse reading. In my surface pulse, the vata finger mostly expressed gunas of kapha, with some vata qualities. In my pitta finger, I feel a combination of both kapha and pitta, and in kapha finger, I feel mostly vata qualities. The meal that I plan to help balance out my doshas is a homemade rosewater lassi with carefully selected tastes. I chose pungent, vata-increasing spices, anise, cinnamon, and cardamom, and astringent, vata-increasing rosewater. The lassi is made with kefir. The reason I chose this meal is because the pungent spices and astringent rosewater will help to increase vata, therefore bringing more balance in my pulse by counteracting the increase of kapha and pitta that I am currently experiencing. I will most certainly continue to implement these practices more and more. I am very passionate about Ayurveda. I have always thought that the answer to disease and discomfort was a diet change. However, I was completely unaware of what healthy food actually is. I was living in a paradigm where if something said it was healthy, then I believed it. I also believed that some bad habits in diet and other situations were okay from time to time. After revising my entire diet and learning how to truly be healthy, I felt more alive than ever. This was coming from disease that I built up for years. I found that when I become self-referral through regular TM practice an ideal routine that I naturally become more aware of what was or was not suitable for myself. And that is why I will always choose to implement Ayurvedic practices into my daily diet and routine. In this week's Goals and Experiences forums, I explained how I anticipate to use the gunas as a guide for creating fitting meals. I also explained the pulse reading that I did, the subdoshas that I felt, and what meal that I plan to help bring balance to my pulse, and why I believe that that meal is one that will help. Lastly, I explained why Ayurvedic practice of diet, digestion, and nutrition is something that I will continue to implement into my life. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful week.